In the year 2000, Enron was the seventh biggest company in America. It reported over $100 billion in revenue. Wall Street called its executives the smartest guys in the room. Fortune named it America's most innovative company, 6 years in a row. 14 months later, it was bankrupt. 20,000 people lost their jobs, and many lost their life savings with them. Here is the part most people get wrong. Enron didn't hide its tricks in some secret vault. It hid them in plain sight, in accounting rules that auditors approved year after year. Enron wasn't a company that failed. It was a stock price wearing a company as a costume. This is how the costume came off. Enron began in 1985 in Houston, Texas, as a boring pipeline company, natural gas. Pipes in the ground, steady, dull, real money. Then came the men who found dull unbearable. Chairman Ken Lay, friend of presidents, face of Houston, and Jeff Skilling, a McKinsey consultant with one transformative idea. Stop moving gas. Start trading it, like Wall Street trades stocks. Enron would become a marketplace for energy itself. The idea was genuinely brilliant, and for a while, genuinely worked. But Skilling demanded one condition, an accounting method called mark-to-market. And that condition was the seed of everything that followed. Here is what mark-to-market meant in practice. Sign a deal today for a power plant that might make money over 20 years. Estimate those future profits yourself, then book ALL of them as profit today. And when next quarter came, yesterday's imaginary profit was already spent. So Enron needed a bigger deal, with bigger imaginary profits every single quarter. It was a treadmill that could only speed up. By the late 90s, the treadmill was sprinting. Enron traded electricity, broadband, even the weather. Want one number that captures the whole machine? In 2000, Enron signed a 20-year video on-demand deal with Blockbuster. The technology barely existed. The pilot reached a few hundred homes. The deal died within a year. Enron still booked about $110 million in profit from it. Yes, that Blockbuster. Empires of paper have a way of finding each other. Revenue on paper exploded toward $100 billion. The stock kept climbing, and the stock was all that mattered. Executives were paid in stock. Deals were judged by how the stock would react. The company's real product was no longer energy. It was its own share price. But imaginary profits leave a very real hole, debt. Enron was borrowing billions to keep the machine running. And debt on the balance sheet would spook investors. So the chief financial officer, Andrew Fastow, built a hiding place. Actually, hundreds of them. Shell companies with names out of Star Wars designed to hold Enron's debt off its books. On paper, the debt belonged to someone else. In reality, Enron guaranteed it all with its own stock. Which meant one thing. If the stock ever fell, every hidden hole would open at once. The whole empire had become a bet that the share price would never go down. Then California handed Enron a live experiment. The state had just deregulated its electricity market. Enron's traders found the seams within months. They created fake congestion on power lines, then got paid to relieve it. They exported California's own power out of state, then sold it back at crisis prices. The schemes had nicknames: Death Star, Ricochet, Get Shorty. In 2000 and 2001, California suffered rolling blackouts. Millions of people sat in the dark while Enron's trading desk celebrated. Years later, recordings of those traders leaked. They joked about the money they were taking from Grandma Millie and laughed. That laughter tells you what the culture had become. This time, the profits were real. The humanity wasn't. In August 2000, the stock hit its peak, $90.75. Employees poured retirement savings into company shares. Analysts who questioned the numbers were mocked on earnings calls. One asked a simple question: why can't Enron show a balance sheet with its earnings? Skilling called him an asshole, live, on the call. Everyone laughed. Nobody followed up. That was the culture in one moment. Then, in 2001, the treadmill finally outran the runners. The broadband business collapsed with the dot-com crash. The India power plant was bleeding hundreds of millions. Deals stopped closing. Real cash stopped arriving. And in August 2001, Jeff Skilling did something CEOs at the top never do. 6 months into the top job, he quit, citing personal reasons. Wall Street's blood ran cold. That same month, an Enron executive named Sharon Watkins wrote to Ken Lay. Her warning was blunt: the company could implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She was right on schedule. In October 2001, Enron announced a $618 million quarterly loss. Then it admitted shareholder value had been overstated by more than $1 billion. The SEC opened an investigation into the shell companies. Then Enron confessed it had overstated profits going back years and restated them. The stock didn't dip. It vaporized. $90 to 26 cents. A rescue merger collapsed when the buyer saw the books. On December 2nd, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest bankruptcy in American history, $63 billion in assets. More than 20,000 employees lost their jobs. Many had their retirement locked in Enron stock while it fell, forbidden from selling. Over $1 billion in retirement savings was wiped out. One utility worker watched $300,000 become $1,200. He wasn't an executive. He just believed the people upstairs. The executives had sold hundreds of millions in stock on the way down. The cleanup rewrote American business. Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 biggest audit firms on earth, was convicted for shredding Enron documents. The 89-year-old firm collapsed, taking 28,000 more jobs with it. Congress passed the toughest accounting reforms since the Great Depression. It was called Sarbanes-Oxley. CEOs now sign their own numbers under criminal penalty. Every public company on earth still lives in Enron's shadow, and the smartest guys in the room finally faced a jury. Andrew Fastow, architect of the shell games, cooperated and served 6 years. Ken Lay was convicted of fraud and died before sentencing. Jeff Skilling got 24 years, one of the longest white-collar sentences in history. He served 12 and walked out in 2019 into a world Enron helped make cynical. So, what actually killed Enron? The easy answer is greed. But greed is always in the room. It doesn't explain the collapse. The honest answer is more uncomfortable. Because the fraud wasn't hidden from the smartest people in finance. It was performed in front of them with their applause. Mark-to-market was legal. The auditor signed off. The bank structured the deals. The analysts kept saying buy. The board approved Fastow's shell games twice. Everyone in the room was paid by the same rising stock price they were supposed to question. When every watchdog eats from the same bowl, nobody barks. Enron's genius was never hiding the truth. It was making the truth unprofitable to notice. 20 years later, every company that books tomorrow's promises as today's profits is running the same treadmill. The names change. The accounting evolves. The question stays the same, not is it legal. Enron was legal until suddenly it wasn't. The question is, where's the real cash? Because paper profits built Enron's tower, and paper burns.